Hey, Catherine, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you came highly recommended by Marion Stewart. She's another British woman helping women's health.
Yeah, she is phenomenal. I'm lucky enough to be in a women's health group of 12 of us based in the UK. Well, actually, one based in the US, who meet each week, and she's just knocked my socks off with her passion. She's incredible.
What is that group? You meet every week like a little like tea party type of thing, or like you guys to get together to talk about vulvas? Like, what is that?
Yeah, basically a little bit of that. No, it's a group of some doctors, some scientists, some people working in startups, and actually some women who hold incredible positions within the National Health Service, the NHS, and also run some of our kind of more translational health institutes in the UK. But it's called the Senior Women in Health Group, and I consider myself very much a junior woman in wellness in their company. So I'm kind of just lucky to be involved in it, really.
That's so cool. Well, that is awesome. If you could ever bring a +1, invite me. I would love to check that out. That sounds awesome. Very powerful women there. Well, let's kick it off with your background. Our listeners love to learn about our guests, especially because most of us don't grow up saying we want to work in femtech, or we don't major in femtech, right? And so tell us where you're from. What did you study? Did you have a career before this? And how did you end up here?
Yeah, I definitely didn't study anything to do with femtech. Actually, I studied at King's College London in London, and then I actually went to law school. So I think looking back, it was mostly because, I'd read a million John Grisham books like everyone else, and probably watched a bit too much Legally Blonde. But I think I really like stories of people, and kind of the idea that there are these big critical moments in life, kind of life-defining moments, if you will. But actually, even though when I was there, I loved the topics, I didn't actually really connect with the idea of the job that much. It didn't feel like the stories or the life-changing bit happened very often. It was just kind of a lot of process, and the law, as everyone knows, is quite slow moving by definition. And I like a bit more pace to my day-to-day. So that kind of, I suppose, explains how I ended up doing what I did do. I took a job as a producer at the BBC in London. So I did that for about 5 years. So I worked in the newsroom, trained in journalism, then also became a researcher and producer. So I worked on award-winning current affairs content. So that was across radio, TV, online content, kind of longer form current affairs stuff. And that's kind of, I suppose, the start of what has really led into the rest of my career and where I am now, which is this idea of taking information and turning it into content that can touch people's lives or that people can really use. So I actually, in between that, lived in Africa for 5 years. So I was working in communications and content and research for NGOs and for businesses, and kind of translating data that was coming out of studies there into narratives that people could connect with, be that for fundraising or other reasons.
Wow. When you say you lived in Africa, what country?
So I lived in South Africa for most of it, and also Sierra Leone in West Africa, which it was an amazing, incredible place, but also quite a scary place in that I got a really bad case of malaria and nearly popped it. So that was definitely an experience, but a really cool one as well.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened after this journalism experience?
Yeah, along the way, I'd always picked up a lot about health and wellness. So I grew up kind of surrounded by doctors and nurses and family and close friends. My mum was an intensive care nurse, and my dad is an engineer. I suppose what we might call nowadays a multi-time entrepreneur. He left engineering, some of his own stuff. And I got my Vinyasa yoga instructor qualification, and I kind of widely read around Western medicine, but also a lot more kind of Eastern and holistic medicine too. And my parents were kind of immigrants to England from Ireland, and they emigrated. They worked in the Middle East for many years, and then across the US and Asia and South America and Africa, actually. And so I suppose, me then blending all of this career history with that kind of upbringing is really what led me to that intersection of entrepreneurship and health, and especially this idea of sort of blending holistic health into something digital and something that can work across loads of different communities. So that is what I'm doing now. So I'm co-founder of a startup called ELANZA Wellness, and it's in the fertility space, and we have a behavioral health coaching platform for fertility patients.
And that's amazing. And we're going to get into that. I want to clarify one thing. Did you say as a kid, your parents like took you around to all these different countries? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I went to school in England, but they were kind of working across lots of different places and we were always heading somewhere. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Because you know what that says to me is, you know, I work with founders every day and I've been a founder. I am a founder, right? And I think that we have really, really unique upbringings. So yesterday I interviewed someone for the show, Summer, actually from Hera Biotech, and she grew up in the rodeo and she was like a rodeo champion. And now she's doing like endometriosis genetics or, you know, and I was just like, rodeo? Like, that's so intense and crazy, you know? And I always share my story of like, I didn't grow up with money and like had me, you know, my family was not, no one in my family went to college. No one was talking about college. Like I come from several generations of trailer park livers, you know? And so like, my challenges were different, right? And now I hear yours is like this one that's like international, multi-ethnic, right? You're like experiencing all these things. And I feel like to be a successful founder or to even choose this lifestyle, you need to have had a unique upbringing. Do you agree?
Exactly. I think you're so right. And I think that, you know, it doesn't matter what that experience is, it can be completely diverse. But I think there's this thread of what I suppose investors call grit, or it's, you know, you use intensity, which I think is huge as well. And it's this idea of kind of looking at things from the outside in sometimes and being able to identify things that don't need to be there and should change. I hate that phrase, oh, because it's like that. You know, kind of that becomes the questions, why?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, all right. So let's get into Alonzo. I just wanted to clarify that. I was like, I'm pretty sure she just said she traveled the world. And I think that's a really big marker of being a founder. So what is Alonzo Wellness?
Yeah. So it's a digital behavioral health coaching platform for fertility patients. And so what that means in plain English is it's basically a place for people who are trying to conceive or people who are undergoing fertility treatment to be able to access all those other parts of care that they need that aren't clinical. So myself and my co-founder both went through fertility treatment in the sense that we froze our eggs, and plenty of peers who are going through IVF or who are trying unsuccessfully and devastatingly to conceive. And you know, it's so much about all of those journeys, whether you're doing it unassisted or assisted, is about more than just your eggs. It's about more than just your ovaries. And it's about every single input around them that feeds into that journey. So this could be your relationship, this could be your work, this could be, you know, that huge amount of stress that you're under because of so many different things that could be going on in your life that might be financial, let's say. But there's this huge body of literature now, of data that suggests that all of these things layered up can actually have a really tangible impact on fertility. So there are obviously some types of fertility issues which are structural, which are kind of biological and somebody needs an operation. And there are other types which get broad brushed as unexplained. And then you've got obviously age-related fertility decline. But what's true across all of those things is that the right physical and psychological settings can improve your odds in any one of those scenarios. And at the moment, unfortunately, that's not happening for people who are at home alone, struggling and trying to conceive. And it's not broadly happening for people that go to fertility clinics and pay a huge amount of money for assistance in getting pregnant. And certainly in our case and in so many interviews that we've conducted with people and amazing researchers that we've spoken to from everywhere, from Cambridge University to UCSF to Yale, who've conducted quantitative and qualitative analyses of people's experiences. No one feels like they're getting enough help. Mm-hmm. And definitely that was our case. And you hear that enough and you go through it yourself enough and you kind of start to feel a bit angry about it. Like, this is wrong. It doesn't actually need to be like this. And so Britt, who is my co-founder, another Brittany, she and I happen to be at this inflection point in our lives at the same time, although for very different reasons. So I was getting divorced to, I suppose, what in America you might call my college sweetheart, at 31. Britt was married, is still happily married, but her and her husband were living overseas, both working in startups, not a situation where they were feeling at all ready to start a family. And so we were kind of coming at this at the same time and sharing our experiences and hearing from other people about it. And we thought, okay, well, let's see if we can do something about this. Taking my background around kind of content production, storytelling, and Britt's background, she's a Silicon Valley native and she worked in tech since probably before she could walk. And her, it's sort of second nature to improve things if you can digitally and at scale. So we started working with a team of nearly 30 fertility experts, so doctors, scientists, anthropologists from around the world, and saying, what is this analysis of all the data that's out there, and of the, not just the sort of lifestyle and emotional health components of how we can better support people, but actually also on the kind of infrastructure side, and what is that process, what does that user journey, if you will, look like in fertility at the moment, and finding the gaps in them over and above the ones we ourselves have experienced, and designing a system that can work via fertility clinics and also directly to patients in a way that can fill some of those gaps. We actually started focusing specifically on egg freezing because that had been our own area of expertise, our own focus. And we ended up writing a book initially as almost a way to quickly disseminate all of those things that we'd kind of drawn together from the huge body of research around the world and the expertise of all these great people that we've been working with. But very quickly, people started feeding back, great, this was nice, but how? I think this is a huge thing, isn't it? It's information versus transformation. And it became really quickly clear to us that actually our digital platform shouldn't be informational. It should actually be take people on a transformational and quite a personalized journey through their own fertility journey. Really that's kind of what we've been busy building and working with in conjunction with fertility clinics to build, so that integrates properly into their workflows and their systems, and actually, relieves their clinicians rather than adding an extra burden to them. Because I think the problem a lot of the time is, at the moment, we as patients are saying we need this extra help on all these extra areas, but clinicians in every area of health, including fertility, are massively overstretched. And, we don't want people to be burning out on that end of things too. So actually doing it in a way that adds to their capacity and better supports the patient experience is really what we've been working at.
Yeah, wow. Well, I've never froze my eggs, not yet at least. And can you give us some examples of why that experience was so bad that you think you needed to write a book, and then even that isn't good enough and you needed to create technology? What were some of the things that happened?
Yeah, something that a lot of people have said to us, and I massively identify with, is you feel like just a number. And so I think particularly in this area of medicine where a lot of it's paid for out of pocket, you're kind of a bit more of a consumer than you are a patient, or you're both at the same time. Yeah. And so maybe it's partly to do with this mismatch of expectation and service delivery, even in some cases. But really it's the medicalization and clinical feeling of a process that is inherently partly emotional and partly relational. Yeah. And so, we're not saying that we want our reproductive endocrinologists to necessarily do anything other than, their core competency, the thing that they've trained for many, many years to amazingly do. Same goes for OBGYNs. But obviously to do that in a kind of respectful, inclusive way that treats you as a partner in the process, which doesn't always happen, sadly, at the moment. But layering on top of that, a way to say to people, okay, instead of someone just saying, oh, be healthy, that's going to affect your outcome. In what ways? How specifically for somebody who has, let's say, PCOS or endometriosis versus somebody who's 40 plus and going through a fertility treatment? What are the actual tangible ways they could biohack, for lack of a better word, their mind and body to set the right optimal conditions for fertility for them? That's something that doesn't actually require or work best with just one care provider in a limited 30-minute appointment window where they're trying to also take your bloods and give you a scan and kind of talk to you about the actual process. That's something that is most beneficially done through a daily, incremental, multidisciplinary approach. And so what we're seeking to do with our platform is actually drawing together the best of the expertise from many different disciplines. So be that clinical psychologists, nutritionists, it could be yoga instructors. I say this as somebody very biased towards yoga, but I do recognize that not everybody loves yoga. It's not everybody's bag. But whatever your thing is for mindfulness, be it meditation or be it actually, getting out there and having an amazing walk, how are you setting up your life in the best way to reduce chronic stress, to balance hormones, reduce inflammation throughout your system, all of these things that a vast body of evidence suggests can help you get pregnant faster, stay pregnant, and actually have better outcomes of all fertility treatments. And this is actually, obviously no golden ticket, and this isn't a magic pill. It's not to say that, follow a certain protocol or certain steps and every single person is going to get pregnant. That's not the case. It's all about kind of refining odds, improving chances, and also beyond that, kind of setting up people's mental and emotional well-being in such a way that you're resilient to the difficulties of the journey, because this can be a really tricky journey. I mean, I'm 35. I was 32 when I froze my eggs, and I was absolutely horrified at how lonely and disempowered I felt during the process. I felt really good afterwards because I felt like, okay, I've done something for me. I've taken a proactive step, and I feel like that was the best thing to have done. But during it, there's nothing like, injecting yourself with a load of hormones when you're newly single, or in other people's cases, maybe, if you the conditions in your life for whatever reason aren't right to be starting a family at the time when you quote unquote should be, and you feel like the biological clock's ticking, then it's a really stressful process. And so much research shows that people who are struggling with fertility problems face depressive symptoms, great deal of anxiety, and here's the ticker, like chronic stress, which is now actually definitively been linked in a causative way, not just a purely correlative way, to impaired fertility as well.
Do those, does chronic stress though affect like the quality of or quantity of eggs that you release and when you're freezing it? So, we've talked a lot about IVF, and absolutely there's so many biological processes that need to happen with like the egg implanting on the wall of the uterus and all that stuff, right? But what about for egg freezing? I'm just curious, does your stress at the time actually affect how many eggs that get frozen or the quality of those eggs?
Yeah, it's always an incredibly difficult thing to say. And it's really hard for scientists to pinpoint one thing down because there's so much variation from one person to the next. Even if you take that same person cycle to cycle, our menstrual cycles 1 month to the next can be really different. But critically, I mean, we all know it. Like, I definitely notice changes in my period when I'm stressed, even, just by deductive reasoning, we know that this could be the case. But now there is an increasing body of evidence that says yes. So the kind of biological mechanism behind that is linked to something called the HPA axis, not the HPA axis, the HP axis. And it's effectively when neurons in your brain are triggered in stress situations, and there's a kind of hormone cascade response that happens. And this involves all sorts of hormones, not even just the reproductive ones. It can involve leptin, the hunger hormone. It can involve melatonin, the sleepy hormone. But we know that those things also can really interact with our reproductive systems. For the time being, the definitive research that's been done has been done in animal models because they're just better able to model sort of reliable conditions for the experiments. It's a bit tricky in humans, but they've literally been able to switch on and switch off reproduction by moderating the activity of those neurons in the brain that respond to chronic stress, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. I mean, it makes sense sort of when you look at it anthropologically. In times of great stress, so in famine or war, it would have hindered us.
Not the best time to have a baby, right?
Exactly.
On your website, you have the whole patient care pledge. What is that?
Yeah, that's actually something that we've just launched this month. So this is an initiative. So it's in two parts. So firstly, we're calling on fertility clinics to sign up to the pledge. So any doctor or nurse or clinician that works at a clinic can just go to that page and run through the checklist of things on our pledge, which are based around this concept of kind of whole patient care, what it is that we as patients really need, want, and what's been proven to help us respond best to treatments physically and mentally. So that's mental and emotional health, those lifestyle factors we were talking about, providing decent counselling or opportunities for patients to reach out to third parties like us about them. And it's also around patient-centric operations and things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, because not everybody's journey to fertility is the same. So LGBTQ plus couples or individuals can, sometimes feel quite underserved, and in some cases even judged in particular environments. And so just making sure that every setting is able to give each patient their best experience is really important. And the second part of that initiative, aside from the pledge, is we've also got a simple form on there. It just takes a few minutes, where past patients and current patients can share their experiences as well. So specifically ranking areas of treatment and what was done well, what was done badly, share their story and say, what are opportunities of ways that we can improve this in the future? Because we're actually working hand in hand with clinics where we can go to them with information, anonymized, and learnings, and say to them, look, this sucks when this happens for patients at the moment. What are ways that we can change this? So whether that's, adding another feature onto our product, or whether that's actually just feeding that information back to clinics as part of our mission, just to improve the overall patient experience. That's what we're really hoping to achieve through this initiative.
And how would a woman know if someone's taken the pledge? They have like a little badge or something?
You are very ahead of the game. Yeah, exactly. So we haven't quite launched it yet, but in National Infertility Awareness Week, which starts on the 18th of April, we're launching a curated directory of fertility clinics where their physicians have signed the whole patient pledge, and where they've partnered with us to say, look, this is important to us. Doctors can actually, we've got a system where they can kind of record their answers to particular questions, and we'll post them on the directory so that patients can go on there and what we're calling, they can do a bit of doctor dating. Because definitely in our position, it's really hard picking a clinic and kind of knowing what rapport you might have with the clinician. You can look at things like success rates, which absolutely are important, although very difficult to compare apples with apples, and are definitely malleable on the side of the clinics, because some clinics, let's say, don't take patients over a certain age. So their results are skewed positively, or, there are all sorts of funny little dirty data things going on there. So it is a metric, but it's not the only metric. And increasingly patients are saying to us, the relationship, the rapport with my clinician, that's got the power to make or break the cycle. And it really matters to me to almost interview the person that I'm going to give my business to effectively. And so we wanted to find a way for, an unburdensome, non-time consuming way for that doctor dating, kind of speed dating to happen. And for us, having doctors record these video snippets and having that be there on the directory for patients to be able to go through in their own time was the best way of achieving that. So yeah, we'll be launching that on the 18th of April.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a lot like OBGYNs or dentists. Like you always want a referral, it's like you never go cold to those. You always are like, hey, y'all, like I'm looking for one. And you ask your friends how their experience was. So it sounds like your director is kind of like a friend.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, we're not aiming to kind of have every single clinic in the world on there. We're just aiming to refine down and really pick out the ones that have said, yes, this is important. And we have the systems and the structures in place where we are working towards the best patient experience possible.
Cool. Wow. Well, this has been so impressive. So awesome. We deserve it all. Women deserve it all. We deserve great medicine, great physicians, but we also deserve to have our feelings and feel like there's customer service involved, especially when it's out of pocket thing. So this has really been amazing. I have two last questions for you that our listeners love. The first one is, we have a lot of aspiring founders. So what's an area in women's health and wellness that still needs innovating?
Ooh, this is such a good question. So I think, if you were to ask a lot of investors, they would say menopause, which absolutely has been underserved. But I think that, as we were speaking about Mary and Stuart, there are a whole bunch of incredible people out there solving for that already. So I do think that is on its way, hopefully, to being solved. So something that I would actually say, which is kind of tangentially linked to health and wellness, but very definitely related, is more on the kind of social structures side. So a huge area I think we need more solutions in is around how we can set up society with more family-friendly policies. I think this has become so important in lockdown in particular. There's this idea of women doing the second shift, the hidden second shift. And, this does have an effect on our health. We were talking about chronic stress pathways before. That has a tangible impact on physical health too. And, even at our early stage at ELANZA, we, particularly being two female founders, are really proactively trying to put policies in place where we say, how can we support remote working, flexible working, and really put the call out to women, people in general, who maybe don't feel there's a space for them in the workplace anymore because they left to have kids and they're trying to access the workplace again. We really want to create space for people to be able to do both. But it's a tricky thing to navigate. So I would actually love to see Femtech founders tackling that, which might include things around bias in hiring processes, and flexible working as it pertains to blending career and family. I think these are underserved and unsolved areas.
100%. Yeah. Especially if we're looking to, decrease stress, to increase your health, like childcare and, logistics and working environments. Absolutely. All of that will definitely contribute to it. Our last question is, what do you think the femtech industry as a whole needs the most right now in order to be successful?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So firstly, more female investors, because it's been proven, I think, by some great Harvard research that, people are more likely to invest in people that look like them. I think it's called the homophily principle. You build more rapport with people that are like you. And while we can get into a debate about whether that should or shouldn't be the case, the fact is that it does seem to be. And so I think having investors or decision-making investors that reflect more diverse populations is critical. And I think secondly, also just more of us getting in the arena. So I think that particularly when it comes to really mission-based businesses, like we feel very, very strongly about our mission. I know a lot of people in Femtech do, a lot of other founders that I speak to, and a lot of people that are passionate about the space. But I think that you can have profit and mission go hand in hand. And I think sometimes raising capital means you can solve your problem better at scale. And so not being afraid to actually ask for money and continue to bang down the door and get in front of investors. is exactly what Femtech needs. It's more founders who are saying, our markets are huge, our products need to be out there, and we're the people to do it.
Yep, that's right. Well, I obviously believe in all of that, so we are on the same page. This has been so awesome. Catherine, thank you so much for your time today. So glad Marion suggested you. And, I'm really excited to see your pledge come out, your directory. And this has been fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, Brittany. It's fantastic. Thanks.